All right, so welcome to Common Climber. Today we are here talking with author and climber Jeff Smoot, whose new book, All in Nothing, Inside Free Soloing, I had to get that second part there, is being released. My name is Stefani Dawn, and I am the editor of Common Climber magazine, and we have Dave Barnes with us here, who is the assistant editor of Common Climber. Wade, say hey, Dave.
Hello, how are you all?
Out of Tasmania. Today, conversation is about free soloing. And it's a controversial topic, right? If there ever was one amongst the climbing community. So just in case our audience is not familiar with some of the climbing terminology, I'm just going to take a sec and become a dictionary. So free climbing, I know a lot of people who aren't experienced in climbing kind of get confused and they hear the word free climbing and they think that it's free soloing, and that's not the case. Free climbing just refers to the utilization of our hands and feet directly on the rock without aids like ascenders. Free soloing is when you do free climbing but without any ropes or trad equipment or bolts or things like that to help protect you from falls. And then there's also this other term just by itself called soloing, which a lot of times a person can do what's called a rope solo, and they are climbing by themselves, but they're using gear and ropes to actually prevent the falls. So today we're talking about free soloing. It's the thing that most people kind of know about when they think about like Alex Honnold and the movies, various movies and things that they've seen. So where I'd like to begin with this is sort of just raise your hand if you have, anyone here has free soloed. And I'm going to do that. So I want us to talk a little bit about our own free soloing experience. And I do this because I've done what I call accidental free soloing. And to me, that means I end up on a climb that like has more than 30 feet of between protection in 5th class terrain. So I don't choose for that to happen. It's just you end up in a circumstance where no one tells you that the climb is like dangerously run out, or you just end up in that kind of situation. So I haven't free soloed by choice. It's been kind of accidental, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about what does free soloing mean. But Dave, you want to chime in on what's your free soloing?
Oh, geez. When I was a young climber, I was full of beans. I just couldn't get enough of it. And like I saw in Jeff's book, it's the impulsiveness, not just of the climbing, but of just being young. And so I would go after school and I would solo 10-meter route, and just to get my fix, because it was quicker and easier to do it without partners, and I knew the routes, so I would just do them. But there was a time in the Blue Mountains when I was a young man, and there was about a 510C, 510D, and I'd done it before, and I thought I could do that. I could solo that. It was the end of the day. We had a big climbing day, and I can't even really recall it, but I just started soloing and it felt good. I felt solid. I got higher and higher and higher. The crux is 2/3 up, and that would be, 50 feet off the ground. And I started to come undone, and everything started shaking, and my brain was going three or four directions all at once, and I didn't know what to do. And something extremely rare happened. I just went to this other place. I took a deep breath and I said, Dave, this is it. You got to make a decision. And life had become real finite at that place. And I found a calm, and I finished the crux, and I climbed on through to the end. I never really soloed much after that. I think that was my growing up tick. And things changed. But I tell you what, that experience shaped a lot of who I am today. I learned a lot from it.
You hit on a few points that I think we're probably going to dig into a little bit here later on. So, all right, Jeff, our author here.
Yeah, my experience, I think, is similar to Dave's. When I was young, starting into climbing, I started in the late 70s and the early 80s, before sport climbing really became a thing, right? And so trad climbing was it, and a lot of routes were bold and they were run out, and you had to learn that mental control to be able to keep it together on those sorts of routes. And a lot of climbers soloed for mind control, they called it. They just did it because they wanted to develop that intense focus and concentration that they needed, so they didn't, lose it and fall and hurt themselves on some of the trad routes. But a lot of people were doing it. And I was exposed to it through a solo climbing through a film called Solo that came out in 1974. It wasn't free solo climbing. It was just a guy, being filmed solo climbing up some things in Yosemite and the Tetons. But I really loved that. So I like the idea of that rugged individualist guy against nature, doing it on his own thing. So I started out, climbing trees and buildings and whatever there was. And so when I got into real climbing, I still like the ideal of the solo climber. So when I encountered John Backer in Joshua Tree in 1982 and saw him free soloing everything, everywhere, that was just like, wow, that I want to be like that. That he's my new idol. And a lot of people were soloing then. The first day I showed up in Joshua Tree, I got out of the car and there were 5 or 6 guys free soloing the left ski track. It was 8 o'clock in the morning, and here's this crew doing a train on left ski track and then going on and doing a whole bunch of other stuff, which kind of blew my mind. So that was kind of the culture. When I went to Yosemite later that year, there was Backer again and some other guys, and they were free soloing all kinds of stuff in the valley and in the meadows. And so that just really appealed to me. So I started doing that kind of stuff more often. I ran into Peter Croft quite often during the mid 80s. And wow. He would show up at a crag that I was at. I know he came to Australia and was soloing all kinds of stuff too.
Legend man.
Yeah. So he would show up, we'd show up together and simul solo, or just we'd each be soloing or doing our own thing on these cliffs near home. And that just really, I just thought, wow, I'm like Peter Croft. I'm badass. And it kind of went to my head. I started soloing some harder things, and because I wasn't falling off and I wasn't really getting scared, I thought, oh, I'm good at this. I can do this. So one day I decided I'm gonna solo a 512. And so I picked one out that I thought maybe if I fell off, I wouldn't die. It would sure hurt. And, but anyway, I went and did it, nearly fell off twice, but pulled through and just decided that was it. I wasn't going to do anything like that hard ever again.
Mm-hmm. You weave a lot of your free solo experiences throughout the book, and I think that lends a really interesting kind of personal element to it. So I want to highlight that.